Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Ryan and Rush Show. Last week, Coach Don Nehlen was kind enough to invite Rush and I into his home to do an exclusive interview. Being away from our home studio, we had technical difficulties around the 20-minute mark where the video goes out, but the audio remains the same throughout.
We really enjoyed this interview with Coach Nehlen, and we learned so much about West Virginia football history and Coach Don Nehlen's history. We also invite you that if you'd rather listen to this episode on Apple or Spotify or any other Ryan and Rush episodes, you can always find us there. And of course, we appreciate any subscriptions and 5 stars. Now enjoy the interview with Coach Don Nehlen. And we welcome you to another edition of the Ryan and Rush Show. On today's episode, well, I guess I don't need much of an introduction. We're here with the old ball coach, Coach Don Nehlen, the 21 years at West Virginia, the winningest coach. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Coach.
Well, thanks. Good to be here.
Coach, thanks again for fitting us into your schedule and coming right off the golf course. How did you play today?
What, do you want to ruin my day or what? Well, you know, I was never ever a golfer, and you know, I don't have very good balance. But to be honest, I got a 55 for 9 holes, and that's not real good. But I had a lot of fun.
Still better than me. Jeez, 55 for 9 holes. I'll take that on a good day. Good for you. We also have to congratulate you. You just got inducted into another Hall of Fame. What is it? The National High School Football Hall of Fame in Canton?
Yeah, that's this is the inauguration. This is the first year they've ever done it. And to be honest, I was kind of surprised because I only coached high school football 6 years, but you know, I was born and raised in Canton, Ohio. Mm-hmm. And you know, when you're born and raised in Canton, Ohio, especially when I was, you know, high school sports are really, really big in Canton, Ohio. Mm-hmm. And when I coached at Canton McKinley, that's at that time, 1964, that was probably the second best high school coaching job in America. Believe it or not, I had 14 coaches. I had a budget of $100,000. And our stadium had seats for, I don't know, about 18 to 20,000. And, you know, that stadium, that's where they play the NFL kickoff game.
Yeah,
that was my stadium.
Wow.
That was the stadium we played in. Now, since that time, the NFL has improved it a lot. Because I remember myself and my coaches went in, and it was so run down the locker rooms, we went in and we painted the lockers and put a big bulldog on each locker. But it was a classy high school stadium at that time. And if I remember correctly, we averaged about 8,000 people to a high school game, averaged. And because our closing game was with Massillon, and Massillon, Ohio at that time was probably the best high school job in the country. And we had over 20,000 people for the game. We were both 9-0 going into the game. And unfortunately, we were ahead 14-10 with about 30 seconds to go, and they scored it in the last 30 seconds to beat us 17-14. But anyhow, yeah, I'm getting inducted next Sunday, I believe it is.
Yeah, July the 30th. And let me ask you, you mentioned it, a successful high school career, Cincinnati, Bowling Green, Michigan, obviously the all-time winningest coach at West Virginia. You've been out of the business now for, what, 23 years it's already been?
Yeah.
What do you miss the most about coaching football on a daily basis, or do you miss it at all?
Oh, yeah, well, what I miss are the guys, the players.
Yeah.
Because I love my players. You know, they're just the practice and the recruiting and all that stuff. I don't miss that a bit.
Yeah.
And especially, you know, my back bothered me a lot at the end. Mm-hmm. And it was tough being out on that practice field. But when I go to the game, I miss playing X's and O's with that other guy. The actual game, I miss the game. But the relationship with my players I miss. And but that's the thing that you miss the most. And I miss the relationship with the coaches.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of people think, I didn't like that coach or that coach or that coach. Most of the time, the coaches are good friends. Mm-hmm. Like Frank Beamer at Virginia Tech. Mm-hmm. He's one of my best friends. Joe Paterno at Penn State was a good friend of mine. Those guys we played all the time. Yeah. Dick McPherson at Syracuse was one of my very, very best friends. Evans, when we retired, we went to Ireland together. I mean, you build great relationships with some of those guys. And but those are the things that you miss. Yeah. And now I like to sit back and watch all those teams play on television and say, man, some of these guys are making millions of dollars and they're dumber than hell. I don't know what they're doing. But, those are the things that you miss.
It's a lot easier coaching from the couch than actually on the sideline, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. It's amazing how much better I am while I'm eating a hot fudge sundae and watching them. I'm a lot better coach from the couch.
No doubt.
Hello, Rambling Rush here, and we'll take you back to your episode momentarily. The Ryan and Rush Show is on its way to monetization, and we need your help. Please subscribe to our show if you haven't yet, and let your friends know all about it. The Ryan and Rush Show is your source for West Virginia sports, and our goal is to make this our full-time job and to give you the best news and analysis available. Again, that's the Ryan and Rush Show. Please subscribe today and share with all your friends. Now back to the episode. So before you were even a coach, you were a 3-sport athlete at Bowling Green. You did baseball, basketball, and of course football. You were a quarterback for them. And in today's world, there's such this emphasis on kids specializing in a sport early on. And it's just so wrong because, one, kids should be allowed to play all sports and you should try all things. Can you kind of talk about how being able to play all 3 sports in a lot of different sports led you to be a successful coach and why that is important?
Well, first of all, I agree with you totally. I think we're wrong, especially with young kids. Mm-hmm. It specializes kids in high school. Hey, they got to just play football or they just got to play basketball. First of all, the great thing about sports is competition. Mm-hmm. Hey, when I was in high school, I loved football. But at the end of football season, I couldn't wait for football to be over to get to play basketball. Yeah. And at the end of basketball season, I couldn't wait for basketball to get over so I could play baseball. Now, like my grandkids, Grandpa, the basketball coach tells me, I can't play football. I gotta just play basketball. Mm-hmm. That's a bunch of crap.
It is.
That's terrible in my opinion. And they want them to just specialize in a sport all year round, and I disagree with that completely, because your great athletes are guys who like to compete. They don't like to lose at checkers. They don't like to lose at cornhole. They don't like to lose at anything. But when you just specialize and 9 months out of the year, you're just practicing one thing, you're not competing with anybody. And I think competition is the name of the game. Now, you can work at conditioning. If you're a football player and you're going to end up playing football, you can still play basketball. And you can lift weights during basketball season. You may not lift the real heavy stuff, but you can get stronger and you can do those things. But I think a guy ought to get a chance to play more than one sport. Yeah, believe it or not, my scholarship to Bowling Green, I had a third for football, a third for basketball, and a third for baseball. And I was the last of 6 kids. And my dad said to me, Don, I'm not very smart, but I know what 3/3 add up to be, and that's a full scholarship, and you're going to Bowling Green. Because believe it or not, I didn't want to go. I wanted to play pro baseball. I wanted to be a baseball player. And my dad said, hey, if you're good enough, they'll want you when you're done, but you're going to college. No Nehlen has ever gone to college, and you're gone. And at my house, there was no committees. If my dad said something, that's what you did. And that's how I went to Bowling Green. And I played all 3 sports my freshman year. At that time, freshmen had their own teams. Mm-hmm. Freshmen were not allowed to play varsity. And we got a new football coach at the end of my freshman year. Dwight Perry came from Ohio State, who was a great, great football coach. And he didn't like the idea that I had to play all 3 sports. Kind of going against going against our theory a little bit.
Yep.
And I weighed 150 pounds.
What, soaking wet, probably?
I was trying to figure out a way to put stones in my pockets and everything else when I got on the scale. But after my freshman year, in Bowling Green at that time, you know, the NCAA basketball tournament was really nothing at that time. It was the NIT, mm-hmm. and Bowling Green was a big-time basketball school. But anyhow, after my freshman year, I didn't have to play basketball. But I got to play baseball. And so I played football and baseball. And then when I got to become a junior, I didn't play baseball because of student teaching and just concentrated on football because I became the starting quarterback my sophomore year. And but I became a guy who wanted to be a baseball player until Dwight Perry became our coach. And Dwight Perry looked less like a football coach, acted less like a football coach than any guy I had ever met. But he hired a bunch of young guys to be his assistants, and they changed the program around so quickly. We went from a lousy team to a very good team, to a team that lacked discipline, to a team that had discipline, to a team that had no enthusiasm, to a team that had great enthusiasm. And, you know, Bo Schembechler was one of the assistant coaches. And we all lived in the stadium, which was a dump. And the football offices were about 100 yards away. Mm-hmm. And I'd see the lights on at 10 o'clock at night and 11 o'clock at night. And I'd say to myself, wonder what those guys are doing. What are these football coaches doing over there at 10 o'clock at night? And all of a sudden, instead of wanting to be a baseball player, I wanted to be a football coach. I wanted to be like those guys.
Hey everyone, Moneyline Mac from the Ryan and Russ Show, your source for West Virginia sports. As we wrap up year number 1 on the Ryan and Russ Show, we can't thank you enough for your loyalty and support. And as we transition into year number 2, we need your help. We need you to get over there and subscribe. It takes 10 seconds out of your day and really helps out the show. The future is bright in West Virginia athletics, the Big 12, and of course the Ryan and Russ Show. And we can't wait to be with you every step of the way, bringing you the necessary content and information you need. So remember, subscribe, and let's go Mountaineers.
Because what they did to 100 guys at Bowling Green, who were all lousy football players, we thought, all of a sudden we thought we were good. And those 100 guys who lost all the time, all of a sudden we won all the time. And those coaches convinced us we were good players. Yeah. And we went from a bunch of losers to a bunch of winners, won the Mid-American Conference Championship. And in the 3 years I was the starting quarterback, I think we only lost 4 games in 3 years. Something like that. And all of a sudden I wanted to be like Dwight Perry. And that's why I wanted to be a football coach, is because of Dwight Perry. And Dwight Perry in my opinion, is one of the greatest football coaches that most people never heard about and didn't know about because he stayed at Bowling Green. But he is in the Hall of Fame. And that's why I was able to leave Bowling Green when I did and go to Michigan with Bo Schembechler, because I had such a great relationship with him. And when I coached at Bowling Green, Bo was the coach in Michigan, and I was able to go up there all the time in the spring because it's only 75 miles from Bowling Green to Ann Arbor. So I knew Bo so well. And when I had a chance to join his staff, I ran up there as quick as I could get there. Because at that time, Michigan was known as one of the top 4 or 5 programs in America. And that stadium is pretty awesome when you run out of that tunnel and there's 110,000 people screaming.
Oh, yeah.
That's a pretty awesome feeling. And but anyhow, that's exactly why I switched from baseball to wanting to be a football coach.
That's incredible. And I'm glad you shared that too, because a lot of, football's just been around for such a long time. And as time goes on, you kind of start forgetting about those early greats that really made the game what it is today. So just by you, bringing up Coach, that we're able to keep his legacy, continuing today.
Well, Dwight, like I say, you guys could never appreciate Dwight Perry because you never had a chance to be around him. But how he motivated that team was just amazing. I mean, he just was amazing. Like I say, his first year, he wore a top coat on the sideline and smoked cigarettes.
That's awesome.
Is that awesome or what?
That's crazy. It's great.
I mean,
yeah.
He wore top, and that top coat went down to his ankles.
You're not sure if he's coaching or opening up to sell you pocket watches or something.
I mean, it was amazing what he did. And, but I don't know when he quit smoking, but he did quit smoking.
Wow.
And I think he got rid of that top coat someplace along the way. But he retired when I was coaching high school football. And then he became the AD. And then I went there as defensive coach in 1965. And then at the ripe old age of 31, he hired me as the head football coach. I was the youngest major college football coach in America.
That's awesome. That's incredible.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because you were head coach at Bowling Green from 1968 to 1976, and the Bowling Greens gave you the nickname Master of the Upset. Yeah. What are some of the lessons you learned as such a young head coach at the age of 31 that helped you prepare for a job like West Virginia in the future?
Well, that's a good question. Bowling Green was a tough job at that time. We had no money. And the big thing, we had to teach school. I mean, my coaches, some of them taught Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and some of them taught Tuesday and Thursday, including me. Not only that, you want to hear a great story? I taught ice skating.
No kidding.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, I remember getting my schedule. I looked at it and it said ice skating. I called up the head of the Health and Physical Education Department. I said, Dr. Cooper, I said, this is Coach Nehlen. I says, I just got my teaching schedule and I'm teaching ice skating. He says, I know. I said, Sam, I haven't been on skates for quite a while. He says, well, at least you've been on them. So and you'll never ever know this, but you've all heard of Scott Hamilton?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The Olympic?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, his dad was my photographer on the football, and the first time I saw Scott Hamilton on ice, he was so afraid that he just held on to the side of the railing. He was afraid to get on the ice.
Wow.
That's a true story.
That's great.
And he ended up an Olympic gold medal.
Yeah.
Yeah. He had a disease, but he loved athletics, and he could never find his niche, so to speak. And his mother, they rented that ice arena every morning for Scotty. And he went over there and practiced and practiced and practiced. And that guy went from being afraid of the ice to become an Olympic gold medalist.
Just shows you it's not where you start.
Yeah.
It's where you end up.
It's amazing. You got to be kidding me. Because that's probably 6 years. Probably took him 6 years to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But his dad says, Don, I'm telling you, this little guy's going to be something.
So not only can you coach football, but you can coach ice skating, clearly.
To the NHL.
Yeah, I remember we opened up with Purdue. Bowling Green had never played a Big Ten school, and Purdue was picked to be one of the top teams in the Big Ten. Ooh. They had Darryl Stingley. They had defensive tackle Butts. They were really good. And we go up there. We drove up on a school bus, not a Greyhound bus, a school bus.
Yellow one.
One of those kinds that the kids get picked up. You know, I mean, it was bad.
I bet the ones now are nicer, actually.
Oh, the bus we took, it was something. We drive up there, and we beat them. Unbelievable.
That's incredible. Let me ask you this, Coach, is in today's, obviously, era of football, from going like to a head coach of Bowling Green to following, anyone, but of course understand Bo Schembechler, to now being like, I'm going to be an assistant for you at Michigan. It's an interesting decision, because you're like, I am the head coach, I have the power, but you saw such the promise of Bo Schembechler and what he could do for you in Michigan. Can you talk a little bit more of like the thought process that went into that decision?
Well, I'll give you one of the reasons that when we drove back to Bowling Green from defeating Purdue, we pulled into the ice arena. That's where all the kids got off the bus. There was probably 30 people there. And I said to myself, I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody cares about football around here. And so we defeated Purdue. We defeated Syracuse twice. We went out to Brigham Young and beat them. We were always close to making that program great, but we never were able to get it over the top. And the reason is because we had to teach. We couldn't recruit like the other schools because I would be in Cleveland at 9 o'clock at night, and I had to get my hind end back because I had a class the next day.
Jeez.
And my coaches were all the same. We couldn't meet during the day. We worked. If I had a nickel for every time I got home at 1 o'clock in the morning, when I coached at Bowling Green, I'd have as much money as I've been a millionaire. And my starting salary was $12,000. And the job killed me. I mean, I worked like, it was unbelievable how I worked at Bowling Green. And my coaches were super. They worked their tail off. And I told Bo, I said, Bo, I'm on a treadmill. I'm running like crazy, but I ain't going anywhere. And that's when he said, hey, come up here with me. When he said that, I went running up
there you go.
Route 75 to 23, and 23 went right into Ann Arbor. And it's funny, he advised me not to take the West Virginia job.
Yeah.
Told me not to take it. He said, Don, why would you go to West Virginia? He says, if you win, you'll leave. And if you lose, you'll get fired. He says, stay here and I'll get you a good job. That's what he told me. It was hard to leave Michigan. it was hard to leave Michigan because it was fun coaching there. I liked Bo. He was a sensational guy. And we had a nice place to live. Ann Arbor was a fun place. And at that time, you know, West Virginia was down.
Mm-hmm.
Way down.
I mean, it was way down. They were known as one of the 10 worst football teams in the country. And, you know, 4 straight losing seasons, no facilities. The campus was, you know, Sunnyside was really, really bad.
Yeah.
To be honest, I didn't show the kids that we tried to recruit, I didn't show them the campus until dark.
Wow.
Because I couldn't get them down there.
Yeah.
Without them going through Sunnyside. And, you know, when you're trying to compete, you know, people wanted me to beat Pitt and Penn State. They said, can you beat Pitt and Penn State? I said, try to get down. I mean, it was a tough job.
Yeah.
This was a tough job. And to be honest, when I look back over it, I say to myself, I don't know how we did it. I don't know. You know, getting that new stadium was a real plus.
Yeah.
That was a plus. And but the real plus was Governor Rockefeller getting the money to build that building.
Mm-hmm.
Because we kept them in that building the entire day. The entire day. And then when it got dark, we took them down and showed them the campus. But now, what they have today is unbelievable. Mm-hmm. The campus is so great. And the recreation building and just everything. Everything. They've cleaned up some, you know, you name it. West Virginia is a beautiful place now.
Oh, yeah.
It's the campus is nice and the facilities are absolutely sensational and everything. Football, basketball, soccer. It's just sensational.
Well, thanks to you for laying down the groundwork.
Well,
thank you for not listening to Bo. Yeah. The one time you didn't listen to him was the greatest decision ever.
Yeah, well, you know, what entered into my decision was when I left Bowling Green and I went to Michigan, I was smart enough because I knew all their coaches and they knew me. But I was smart enough to keep my mouth shut because I'd been a head coach for 9 years and Bowling Green we were a major college football team. But I wasn't going to go up there and act like I was some kind of a big timer. Mm-hmm. And I sat there and I listened and I listened and I watched and I listened. And I said to myself, you know, we were pretty good coaches at Bowling Green because a lot of the stuff Michigan did, we were doing too. Mm-hmm. And so when the West Virginia people really came after me, I said to myself, I'm a pretty good coach. I think I'll take this challenge. But had I gone from Bowling Green to West Virginia, I don't think I would have been near as successful. Gone from Bowling Green to Michigan gave me tremendous amount of confidence because Bo was such a great motivator. And going up there with him gave me so much confidence. And that was a real, real blessing for me to spend 3 years with Coach Jim Beckler.
Yeah.
That was a godsend.
Clearly. Sometimes you got to take that step back to move steps forward. So it's incredible.
Yeah, it really was. He just was... you know, he just knew how to take a team right to the edge of the cliff. And as an assistant coach, I'd go, oh my God, he's gonna drive them right off the cliff. We're not gonna have anybody left to play. Yeah. And then he knew when to back them off. And the way he handled the staff, the way he handled me, there's times I'd go home just shake my head. Just shaking my head, go, oh my God. And he just, but all that sunk into me. And yeah. And you know, I never wrote a letter. I never made a phone call. I did not do one single thing to become the football coach of West Virginia. Nothing. And I ended up the head coach. Now you figure that out.
Well, I'm glad it happened, and we're lucky enough to be in your house. It's beautiful. Seeing all the famous photos of all the big wins you had. You mentioned it, though. You got here in 1980 after being at Michigan and Bowling Green, and the program was a dump at the time. I mean, it was way down. It was one of the worst Power 5 jobs. You come here in 1980, you go 6-6 year number one. You win the opener over Cincinnati. What was it like just your first year laying down a culture and stuff like that? I mean, how hard was that?
Well, you know, when I first came, I really worked at from the chin up with the football team. And I left my coaches to do the coaching. And, you know, I tried like the devil. I told the players that were here because they lack confidence. You know, not one single kid had ever played on a winning team.
Yeah.
And so I said to myself, hey, Don, you gotta prove to these guys that they could win. And had we not had to go to Hawaii in the middle of the season, oh my God, when I looked at that schedule, I said, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah.
That just killed us. And then come back and play Pitt and Penn State back to back.
Jeez, who scheduled that?
You know, I'm saying, whoever did this to me? But
yeah.
And I'll say this: that first team, we didn't have a lot of football players, but we had about 6 or 7 pretty darn good ones. Mm-hmm. Pretty darn good football players. And they bought into the program, and they gave us leadership. And those guys that weren't very good, they played better than they were. They gave us everything they had.
Yeah.
I had a lot of respect for all those guys. And other than Pitt beating the devil out of us, we came within a whisker of beating everybody. Mm-hmm. Pitt was just so much better than we were. I mean, they had, be honest, the best players money could buy. They were loaded.
Marino.
They had everybody. I mean, they were really, well, I think they were rated, I don't know, number 2 or 3 in the country. And they were every bit that good. But, I mean, we came within a whisker beating Penn State. And I forget who we lost to now, but we were in every football game. I remember we went to Hawaii, and Tom Osborne, Nebraska played Hawaii the week before we did. Tom Osborne called me up and said, Don, I'm telling you, you're running into a real mess out there. He says they use Hawaiian officials, and they act like they don't understand, and we'd gain 10 yards and get penalized 15. He said, we're 50 points better in Hawaii, and we just barely won. And he was right. We were a better football team in Hawaii, but we got beat. And yeah, we won 6 and lost 6. But the next year we go out and we win 8 games and we beat Florida in the Peach Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then the next year we opened up and beat Oklahoma. And those 2 victories back to back, Florida and Oklahoma, put our program in a situation where we had set ourselves up to be a top 25 football team, top 30 every year for pretty much
Yeah.
people respected us as a team that we could play anybody.
That's the stretch you look back when you said that kind of got our program on the map and headed in the right direction to lay down the foundation for years to come.
Yeah, pretty much.
So when you look back at that time, right? So you're 1980, you go 6-6, right? We just talked about, but that's more about the culture change, right? We get the new logo, we get the new stadium, we get the home and away uniforms, and go 6-6, which, you know, going from nothing to at least going 500. I mean, that's a major win. Then you bring it up, you go 9-3 the next year. And not only are you doing this, you're using the future AD at West Virginia, Oliver Luck, as a carryover. You didn't even recruit him, and you're able to turn him into a quarterback that has you go 9-3. And then you finally have your son-in-law, your future son-in-law, Jeff Hostetler, who you get from Penn State. Joe Paterno has to sit out the 81 season, and he's ready to go against the Oklahoma game right there. And I remember we had Jeff on the podcast a couple months ago, and great conversation talking about that game. But what about Jeff stuck out to you? How were you able to get him to West Virginia?
Thank goodness we got him.
Yeah.
But, well, I remember I was in Cleveland recruiting, and that year Penn State played us here, and we knocked Blackledge out of the game, who was their starting quarterback. And the game was nip and tuck, and I'm thinking, because Penn State didn't take, they thought they'd come in here and knock us around like a bunch of knobheads. And we knocked Blackledge out, and I'm thinking, we may have a chance to get these guys.
Yeah, pick them off.
And then comes this Hostetler guy who I don't know anything about. And holy criminy, he's better than Blackledge. And I'm saying, who's this guy? Bigger, stronger, faster. And he could beat us with his arm and his feet. So they go on and they beat us. Well, anyhow, after the season, I'm recruiting up in Cleveland, and Donnie Young calls me and he said, hey, Coach, you know that Hostetler kid that came in and whipped us up at Penn State? I said, yeah, I remember him. He said, well, he's leaving Penn State, and says that he's going to go to North Carolina or Pitt. I said, well, call him up and tell him he can have our library. We'll give him the library. I was just kidding.
Yeah.
I said, call him up and tell him we'll give him the library. And so anyhow, we start to recruit him, and his brother Doug travels.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Doug says to Jeff, Jeff, maybe you ought to check out West Virginia. I go through there, and that state really likes their football, and that new coach has got them going. And he said, they need a quarterback. And North Carolina and Pitt, I don't know what they have, but I know West Virginia needs a quarterback. So Doug really helped us, unbeknownst.
Yeah.
Unbeknownst to us. And anyhow, we get in on him, visit his family and the whole bit. And anyhow, and then the other thing is when he visits, and this is a true story, my daughter.
Oh, here we go.
My daggone daughter calls me up and says, Dad, can I borrow your car? And Vicky never does that because she had her own car.
Yeah.
And I said, well, yeah, but I got to have it at 5 o'clock because I got to go out to I don't know where I had to go. But so she comes over. She walks to my office, and Jeff's sitting down there. And I notice my daughter look at this kid, and I notice this kid look at my daughter. I never even gave it a thought. And then that year, Well, anyhow, that was the start of those two knuckleheads getting together.
Yeah.
That was the original NIL, right?
Yeah,
It's like, hey, can't give you money, but my daughter's sneaking out to see you.
That's right. And we ended up going to the Gator Bowl and all that stuff. And, yeah, what a great match that is.
It's awesome.
Now they're going to be married 40 years, and they got 3 kids and 5 or 6 grandkids. And
yeah,
you got a couple great grandkids too.
Yeah, amazing, absolutely amazing. Yeah, you talk about Jeff. There's not many Jeff Hostettlers, believe me.
Couldn't agree more. What he's doing at the Children's Hospital, that's where we did our interview, and he's just a man of God.
He's absolutely, and not because he's my son-in-law, and not because he's a great player for me, but he is just an absolutely unbelievable guy. Like you say, what he does, it's like you say, he is a man of God, and what he does for other people, nobody even knows what he does for other people. And what he did for so many people before he ever started with the hospital is unbelievable. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. But anyhow, I'm so proud of Jeff that it's just a story in itself.
That's beautiful, Coach. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and I mean, you get Jeff in after Oliver, and he, like you said, he was an unbelievable player for you. Obviously, your son-in-law. At one point, you guys beat Boomer Esiason, Doug Flutie, Pitt, and Virginia Tech all in a row. How were you able to keep those guys, keep their head on their shoulders, not looking ahead to the next game? Because that's a hard thing to do, to beat a team that good, not only once, but back to back to back to back.
I don't know. Well, we just, like I say, my strength as a coach was not X's and O's. I think my strength was one at a time, keeping them level-headed. And I was always enthusiastic. And I always felt that football was, I told my team, hey, if you're not having fun, then what the hell are we doing out here? Yeah. Football's a game. I always had fun going to practice. If you're not having fun, let me know, because I'm doing something wrong. And now football's a Spartan game, and there are times when, it's going to be work. Yeah. But someplace along the line, we got to have some fun around here. Yeah. And I always tried to make sure our kids had a little bit of fun. And, and I always tried to make sure that we recruited quality kids. Very seldom did I ever recruit a kid that I did not meet his mom and his dad, and I knew his brother and his sister, because I got in his home. I went in everybody's home. I had some knuckleheads, but I didn't have a lot of them. And I think it's a testament today. A lot of kids still contact me. We still stay in touch. And I think it's because we had a lot of character guys. Brian Joswiak had a golf tournament here this past weekend. Thursday night they had a big deal out at the Tropics. And big crowd. Every football player out there, everyone except one, played for me. Every kid that came back played for me.
Wow. That's a testament right there, isn't it?
Well, I mean, they all hang together. And I think the reason, because they're quality guys, they still stay in touch with each other. My center is the vice president of FedEx, guy that played next for him is the president of a steel company in Akron, Ohio. Those are quality guys. I mean, you know, of course now I call them my kids. Now they're 60, 65-year-old guys.
Yeah.
And but anyhow, you know, you never know. You never know. But when you look back, it's been so long ago, and yet it seems it's been so long ago. But it seems like I just got here.
Yeah.
The time goes so fast, so fast. But I'm 87 years old now, gang.
87 years young.
Yeah.
You're killing it, Coach. And let me ask you this, and this is, you know, kind of towards the end of the 84 season to the 88 season, a lot of ups and downs. A lot of you kind of go from, okay, now we're having success with, you know, Jeff Hostetler to trying to find our rhythm again. So it's kind of a two-part question. One is how, when times are tough, how do you keep like just trudging through? But also you kind of bring up, as you're talking about all these former players that you used to have, and now that they're doing great things in the world that aren't football related, how did you turn these players from boys to men?
Well, just through your program. You know, if a young guy, and I think this is true of most good football programs, not Don Nehlen's. I know it's true of Dwight Perry's program. I know it's true of Bo Schembechler's program. I know it's true of my program. If a kid goes through a good college football program, he comes in, and when he leaves, he's a man, because he's disciplined, he's committed, he understands teamwork, he understands getting out of bed early in the morning, he understands going to work, he understands how to treat people, he understands how to mingle socially. He's just the kind of guy that a company wants to hire. He's the kind of guy that people want to be around because he's trustworthy. He's the whole ball of wax.
Yeah.
He's the whole ball of wax because he's done all of those things. You take Kevin Koken. He was our center. We recruited him from Cardinal Mooney High School in Youngstown. He played for me at 300 pounds. He was at the Tropics. He sat down next to me. He's vice president of FedEx. He weighs 195 or 200 pounds now. I looked at him. I says, "You son of a gun, what are you doing?" But he runs and he does all kind of things. He looks terrific. But, you know, he's got 3 beautiful kids. He's got a beautiful wife. And there's nothing, that company got to be so proud of this guy because they know they got a gem.
Yeah.
They know they can trust him. They know he'll be on time. They know he's disciplined. They know he'll treat his employees fair. They know he'll treat them consistent. You know, you can't treat all your employees alike, but you can treat them all fair. As long, when you have a football team, I always told my team, hey, I'm not going to treat all of you alike because you're not, some of you, you're just not, you're all different. But I'm going to be fair with all of you. Mm-hmm. As long as you're fair, you don't have trouble with your kids. Just treat them fair and be consistent. That's, if you're fair with your team, you're in good shape. But kids will spot a phony. I want you to know right now, they'll spot a phony. And if you're going to be a good coach, you better be honest and you better be fair. And if you're not honest and you're not fair, you're not going to last long as a coach.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you that.
That's great advice. And for everybody watching right now, a lot of their favorite player was Major Harris. Absolutely special individual on and off the field. Let's talk about the special season, 1988. You guys blow out Penn State. You get to the end of the year. You play Syracuse on a national stage, beat them. You're 11-0. Just some of the favorite memories of that season and your favorite, maybe one or two stories on Major Harris as well.
Major. Well, you know, like you say, first of all, if you know Major, and I don't know if you know him or not, but you can't help but love him. Mm-hmm. I don't think Major's got a mean bone in his body. He is just the most lovable guy I've ever been around. It's a real shame that he got bad advice and left early. Mm-hmm. Real shame. Because I really think he would have had a real chance to win the Heisman. Yeah. You know, as a junior, he finished 4th. And, you know, the name Major was catchy. Mm-hmm. And the press loved it. Yeah. The press loved the term Major. Yeah. And had he stayed, you know, he would have made us better. Yeah. And he just, that was a crime. But in that season, you know, that 88 season, we were such a good football team. I mean, you know, we beat so many teams so badly, it was unbelievable. I mean,
it was.
We just could, you know, Pitt was a great football team. And we went up there and scored, I think, 32 points against Pitt. That was, I mean, they were really a loaded football team. And I know we scored, I think, 52 against Boston College. And, but Major was so daggone explosive. And, you know, he was so much fun to coach. I remember one story trying to talk to him about all the different coverages, 2 deeps and 3 deeps and 5 underneath mans and 5 underneath zones and all that stuff. And he's just trying to figure out all that stuff. He says, you know, Coach, he said, why don't I just throw it to the guy that's open?
Keep it simple.
Give me some jokes.
Just keep it kind of simple. But, and then that, you know, the play that everybody raves about so much is that run he made against Penn State.
Oh, yeah.
That he weaved. Well, we had called 37, which was an off-tackle play to the left. Mm-hmm. Well, Major thought we called 36. And everybody goes left. And he comes out.
Right. He's rolling right.
And there's no... So he just... And, you know, Penn State is so well coached that their linebackers were going to go the wrong way for a couple steps.
Yeah.
Penn State was so well coached, and Major comes out and, oh Christ, there's no, so he takes off the wrong way, and Penn State's linebackers try to recover, and hell, he just jukes them all. He jukes about 5 guys, and he goes in.
Yeah.
He goes in and scores, and he comes off the field and says, Coach, I'm sorry. He said, I thought I called 36 and everybody's run 37. I said, that's okay. Major results weren't too bad.
You made up for it.
Made the play look good.
Yeah. But, yeah, Major's fun to coach. Now there's a guy, you know, when we talked about competition, see, Mage didn't like winter conditioning. He didn't like to lift weights. His idea of a workout was 5-on-5 playing basketball. Get sweated. Let's go play basketball. He wanted to compete against somebody. Mm-hmm. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to compete. He was a competitor. You know, nobody recruited Major.
No kidding. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he's just from Pittsburgh, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pitt didn't recruit him.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad someone had common sense. I was able to.
Well, I'm not sure we recruited him, but you know what? He came to our football camp.
Yeah.
And I saw him play touch tap at night. I'm watching this kid, and nobody could tap him. I told my guys, I said, I want to take that kid. Because if they can't tap him, I know they're going to have trouble tackling him.
and it showed on 36 dive or whatever. Clearly, the Penn State linebackers couldn't tap him.
Boy, with this spread stuff today, he'd be dynamite.
Well, that's what we were wondering is how would he be? Was he a little ahead of his time?
No question. No question. No question about it. Yeah, he was way ahead of his time.
So after Major leaves, not only is that a big, thing, you got to find a new quarterback now, but also you go from being independent to being a member of the Big East. What was that transition like?
Well, we started to have to play Miami.
Yeah.
And they were the scourge of the world at that time.
The U.
They were winning the national championship, we were independent, I think, until we jumped in there, and yet we won the league first year. We won it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were picked fifth. I think we were picked fifth in the league, and we won it.
What was that? 93? You won?
Yeah.
Because you went. I thought you went in 91 and 92 were your first 2 years in the Big East.
I don't think. Maybe we were. I don't know.
Because 93 was a special year for you guys. You guys beat Miami when they were in the top 5, the largest game ever at Milan Puskar. And
we had 71 or 72.
Yeah.
What were those battles with Miami like in the day? Because that's when they were at their peak.
Yeah. Oh, they were battles.
Yeah.
Yeah, that game was unbelievable. You talk about a physical battle, boy. What was this? Yeah, I think, what was the score of that game?
17-14, yeah.
Yeah, but at the end of the game, we were on the 1 yard line going in to score. But I was, I was really concerned about, maybe fumbling or something, and so I really buckled it up. I said, Jesus, because the game was going to end.
Yeah.
I said, hey, 17-14 or what the hell? I just was afraid if something happened. So I said, the hell with scoring, just get the game over with.
Yeah. Just keep it tight.
Survive in advance, move on to the next week.
Well, hell, I remember we played South Carolina here. And South Carolina was going in to score against us. And we took the ball from their guy and ran 99 yards for a touchdown.
Yeah.
And, crazy things can happen.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And but anyhow, well, going into that league, it just makes it a little more competitive. I think you get yourself a little more rivalries.
Yeah.
But Pitt was in the league too. Pitt went in the league too.
Yeah.
So Pitt was always our rival. And that was always, when I coached, Pitt was always our rival. That's the one thing that we lack now. We just don't have a rival.
Yeah.
Too much. Well,
Big 12, yeah.
They're trying to get the backyard brawl back this year, obviously, and then we're opening up with Penn State. But it seems like in the history of West Virginia playing Penn State, it's been a pretty lopsided rivalry till you came to town. So what do you think about them trying to renew all these rivalries?
Well, if you're going to renew them, you got to play them every year.
Yeah, well, that's a good point too.
We play Pitt, and then we won't play them for, that's no rival. us being in that Big 12 is fine, but how can you get excited about having a rival that's 1,200 miles away?
Yeah.
That's makes it really, really difficult. I don't know. And Cincinnati's nothing more than a glorified Mid-American team.
Yeah.
They really are. They really are. Now they 2 or 3 years ago they had a good football team, but
Yeah, with Fickle. Yeah.
you look at over 15 years they're nothing but a Mid-American team. Basketball, they're a little better than that. They have been anyhow. They're better in basketball than football.
So going into your last year, your 21st year, you were in West Virginia. It was actually kind of, when you look at it, perfect. 80 to 2000, a good clean cut. That was the year that you ended up winning the what bowl was it?
Music City.
That's right, the Music City
Nashville.
against Ole Miss with Eli Manning was the other team. What was that like? Just kind of knowing after that this was it, but also just you had Mark Bulger and Eli Manning on the other side. It's kind of, in a way, it's like the turning of a guard from one era of football into the next. Was that very emotional for you? What were all the feelings through all of that?
Well, that game was, first of all, was a shocker for me because when I retired, I was told that all my coaches, I wouldn't have retired if my coaches didn't all have jobs. And I was told that they all would.
Oh.
Well, as it turned out, none of them had jobs. So we're preparing for the game, and they're all trying to get jobs. And I don't blame them. So our preparation wasn't really that good.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I'm really upset.
Yeah.
Really upset.
As you should be.
Really upset at the administration. And so I decided to tell the players before the game. I told them, I said, hey, we kind of got her screwing around here. And anyhow, going out there and kick these guys' signs in, and I appreciate what you did for us, what you did for me, and I love all of you, and you guys love these coaches here, and unfortunately, they're not going to be able to coach you next year. Doesn't look like it. And we went out there and killed that team. That team was 8-3 in the Southeastern Conference. And everybody thinks that game got close. That game didn't get close. I told my coaches, you play every player we got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we left that team come back by 2 touchdowns, only because we put our third teamers in there. And at the end of the game, we could have scored again. But we didn't, because but every player on our team played in that game.
That's awesome.
And we were so far ahead, I knew they couldn't catch up. So we played all of them. And but that was really, really, it really did. I told my wife before the game, I said, hey, don't be surprised if we don't get beat by 50 points. I did. That's what I told my wife.
You ended up the one with 50 points.
and we just, we had a heck of a game plan. When I studied that team, I couldn't believe what I saw. I really couldn't. And I said to myself, if the Southeastern Conference coaches are supposed to be so good, I'd like to play them. And we put our game plan in, and this team never, ever, they did exactly what they did all year. They played strictly man-to-man all the time. And I would put 3 guys into the boundary and 1 guy out to the field. They would take and put all their defenders into the boundary, and I had 1 guy with 34 yards, and they had 1 guy.
Jesus.
And my quarterback looked like the greatest quarterback in the entire country. And we killed them.
Yeah.
We killed them. And they never adjusted. And you know, after they fired their defensive coach after the game, and I couldn't believe it, that they played, you know, you can play man-to-man, but
You mix it up.
well,
At least adjust.
well, when you put trips into the boundary
Yeah.
in college football, and they take and put 3 defenders into the boundary, and you take 1 guy and put him to the sidelines to the field, that's 34 yards.
Yeah.
Man, Corey Ivy went boom, boom, boom. I mean, that poor defender had no chance.
Yeah. It's not even his fault. Yeah.
We scored 40-some points in the first half.
Jeez.
I think the
Yeah.
score at halftime was...
I think it was like 39-16, something like
Oh,
that.
no, it
49?
wasn't.
I think it's 42-7, right?
Yeah, was it? Yeah,
we,
yeah.
we were in the 40s at halftime.
Yeah, you were. Yeah.
I'm saying, this is crazy.
They put him on an island.
Put him on an island. I mean, Corey Ivy came out of the game and says, Coach, this poor guy, he has no chance. I mean, we'd run a corner post, and this poor kid, you know.
Yeah.
Billy Lake said, Coach, can't believe what they're doing, just exactly what they did all year. But I'm saying to myself, we looked at all this Southeastern Conference film, and none of those Southeastern Conference, including all these great $4 million coaches,
Yeah.
none of them took advantage of it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They won 8 games.
In the SEC, too, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
the
you got the
SEC.
Floridas, the Tennessees at the time. They were
Yeah.
rolling. Let me fast forward to you retire. Rich Rod played for you. What was that transition like? Him coming back to West Virginia University and taking over his alma mater.
Well, I was glad that I would have liked to have seen them hire a guy off my staff.
Mm-hmm.
Naturally. And I thought that they had a couple really good choices. But they didn't do it, but they at least hired a guy that played for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was good. And but I was awful disappointed that he only kept 1 guy that on my staff. I thought he would, you know, he knew all of my guys. I was shocked when he didn't keep, you know, Billy Legg was best man at his wedding, I think, and he didn't even keep Billy
Jeez.
Legg.
Cutthroat business. Jeez.
You know, I was really surprised that Rich didn't keep a lot more of my coaches.
Yeah.
But
Especially being in the family. Yeah.
well, he was an assistant coach at Clemson. He didn't have a staff to bring with him.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had such loyal guys. You know, Steve Dunlap. You know, he's a great football coach. Billy Legg, great football coach. And I mean, you go right through all those guys that I had on my staff are all great football coaches. And such loyal coaches. One of the biggest reasons that I was successful here is I had very little turnover. Very little turnover. When you think of the 21 years I was here, how little turnover I had.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing is what I paid them. They were damn near on food stamps. I mean, really.
Yeah.
Close to on food stamps. It was really amazing how well that those guys hung with us. So, yeah, that part I was disappointed, but I was glad that they hired one of our guys that played here. So, but Rich is an excellent coach. There's no question about that. He's one of the better offensive coaches in the country, I believe.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Were there, looking back on your career, were there any teams, players, opposing coaches that would just keep you up at night?
All of them.
Yeah,
we talked about that before the show. We said he's going to say all of them. Is there one or two that maybe stick out more than others? Maybe like a Mike Vick or
Oh, there ain't any question. When Michael Vick played at Virginia Tech, he just was sensational. Yeah, he was as good a college quarterback as he was really, really a good college football player. Yeah, I would guess that in all the years that I coached, that he was probably, I would rate him the best I played against.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It'll be that
generational talent.
Yeah.
Oh, he just was, well, man, he could just beat you with his feet so quickly. And he could throw the ball a mile. And, you know, they normally had pretty good talent around him, too. Mm-hmm. But he was a great college football player. Yeah. I would say he kept me up most every night.
Kept you up the whole week preparing for him.
Yeah.
If you had to label one game that's your most memorable, favorite win of all time here, West Virginia. Well, yeah, we'll say at your time at West Virginia or career. What would you pick? There's plenty of options. Like you said, we're sitting in your office right now. There's so many great photos of great wins. If you had to pinpoint one game that you remember the most, what would it be?
Well, you know, the Oklahoma game away from home was the game that put the program on a different plateau. But the one I remember the most probably was when we beat Syracuse. And Shelley Poe came in and said, "Coach, nobody's left the stadium. Wow. And they want your team to come back out." And our kids went out and ran around the stadium. And the place was completely packed. That was really a moment that was unbelievable. Mm-hmm. I really remember that well. And then, the Penn State, when we beat them at home, it's hard to, those were pretty good.
Yeah. Special times, special teams.
And yet that Miami game with 72,000 people was
jammed in there.
Jammed in there.
There's no fire marshal.
Yeah, he wasn't working that day. He was in the stadium cheering it on.
Yeah, the fire marshal wasn't working.
He was tailgating that day.
It's hard not to put that up there pretty high too. So those are four awful big games that put the program up with the elite. Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you a little bit about today's college game. Do you think with NIL and transfer portal and honestly conferences not even being regional anymore, how would you do in today's game, or would you even want to coach in today's game?
Well, I don't think it'd be near as much fun coaching. Yeah. And I don't think that... I don't think the kids today get the education through the athletic program. When we talked about when a kid goes into a program, and if he sticks through it and goes through the program, he comes out, he's the whole package.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that happens much today. They bounce around.
Yeah.
Kid goes to 3 or 4 schools.
Yeah.
I don't think he goes for the right reasons. I wouldn't enjoy coaching some of the kids today. I'm too loyal of a guy. I'm too committed. Some kid come up to me and say, "Coach, I'm going to leave." I'd want to strangle him. I really would. I'd want to strangle him. And some kid come up to me and say, "Coach, I'm not playing in the bowl game." I'd want to hit him with a ball bat. I mean, it just goes against what I've been taught all my life.
Yeah.
Loyalty and commitment and discipline and all those things that I've always thought that athletics teaches kids, we're gone away from all that. I mean, to go in a kid's house and say, "Listen, we're going to pay you $10,000. Or we're going to pay you." I'm hearing kids are getting $100,000 to go to school to play sports.
Some are getting millions now.
Yeah.
They're getting paid more than they would at the next level.
Yeah.
That's how it's.
They're getting paid so much that they come back to college instead of going to the pros because it'd be a pay cut to go to the next level.
Well, you know, to me that's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, because when college is over and they don't make the pros, then you got a problem.
Yeah.
Then you got a problem.
You still have a boy. They never became that man that you talked about.
Yeah, exactly. And then what are they going to do? Look out.
Yeah.
Then you got a guy, look out. I don't like any of that.
Yeah.
If we put the transfer and portal and the NIL aside from strictly X's and O's, though, in today's game, if you were coaching in today's game, how would you play offensively and defensively with the way, I mean, you mentioned Rich Rod, how great an offensive mind he is.
Yeah, well, there ain't any question. I think that some of the stuff they're doing is really good.
Mm-hmm.
But the game still is blocking and tackling.
Yep.
That'll never change. And I still think that you win with defense. You know, you look at the pros and you look at good college football teams, you got to be able to play defense. I think, your personnel, you got to change a little bit. You got to put more speed on defense with these guys that make you defend the whole field. And, you got to be able to block them and you got to be able to tackle them. And doesn't matter where you line them up, it's where you end up. So I'd like the challenge I'd like to defend these teams, because the way they line up on offense, they can't protect the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And if they played against my defense, the quarterback would not get up Sunday morning without having somebody help him. I would camouflage my defense, but I'd hit him, and I'd hit him, and I'd hit him. And then on the fourth quarter, he'd be throwing it to me more than he'd be throwing it to his guys. And but you have to camouflage it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd make it look like I'm coming all the time. Every time he put his hands and go like that, he would think he's going to get hit. But half the time, he wouldn't get hit. But he'd never know when that time's coming. But I'd show that. That's how I'd do it.
And you mentioned how much you like coaching from the couch now. Are there any coaches out there that you really like watching their teams play in this day and age? Any that stand out that you think, man, that guy really gets more out of his roster than compared to the others?
You know, I think the guy at Tulane.
Yeah,
he did a great job last year.
I think he gets a lot out of his kids. I watched his team play a couple times, and I thought they really ran to the ball and did some. I liked his team. I'd have to think about that a little bit.
How about the Big 12 if you had to choose? Maybe the guy at Kansas State now, or the guy at Iowa State?
The guy at Iowa State.
Matt Campbell. Yeah.
His defense is amazing to me.
Mm-hmm.
That Haycock guy does a great job. He's their defensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They do a really good job at Iowa State because they get fifth and sixth in recruiting.
Yeah, they don't even use the transfer portal. I think they added 4 people and lost like 5. They keep it consistent. So it'd be interesting to see how they do this year with that mentality.
Yeah. Well, you know, everybody says about all their tight ends, they got this or that. Nobody recruits those kids there. 6'5", 195 pound kids, and they beef them up to 230.
Corn fed.
Yeah. Start feeding them that corn.
Well, they're
they're
a product of their, or just like our '88 team. Nobody recruited those kids.
Yeah.
They were all kids that we worked our tail off on them, got them bigger and better and stronger. But that's what Matt does. You know, Ames, Iowa, not everybody in America wants to run out to Ames, Iowa. And he does a good job with, but he has to, he needs to have them for 3 years.
Yeah. To get better.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the West Virginia team this year? Now, a lot of us in the media, or a lot of people in the media, are not high on them. Ryan and I have been talking about it, that we're severely underrated this year, but you're more of an expert than we are in the subject.
Well, I'm not an expert, but I'd be willing to bet all those media guys are wrong.
I love it.
I think that we got 4 new teams coming in, and I think we're better than 3 of the 4. And the one that we're not better than they are, we're as good as they are. So that's a 50-50 game. And we played Duquesne, and me and my dog could beat that team. So there's 4 wins. Pitt doesn't have a quarterback. They got to come here. And so I'd say that's at least a 50-50 game. And us playing them here, I'd say that we can beat Pitt. Oklahoma State, I think, is as down as they've ever been. Their quarterback left, and they've lost a lot of kids in the portal.
Mm-hmm.
I think and they got to come here. I will really be surprised if we don't win a minimum of 6 or 7. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised if we don't win maybe 7 or 8.
You heard it here. Book it, everyone.
Now, again, I could be completely wrong, but I could be completely right. And everybody says our quarterbacks are no good, but I don't believe that. I'm not saying they're great, but I think they're gutsy little guys. And they're tough little guys, and I'd get in the foxhole with those 2 guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'd get in the foxhole with those 2 guys, and those running backs. I hope Neil gets them so that they have trouble getting up Sunday morning because they honk the ball about 20. Give that great big guy the ball about 25 times. Coach Schembeckler used to tell me, you know, Don, those 3-yard runs in the first quarter come 5 yards run in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Because those linebackers go, oh, golly, here he comes again. So you just keep pumping that big guy, keep pumping him, and remember that the punt is a pretty good play. So don't be afraid to punt early in that game and just keep pumping that big guy. And go with that play-action pass. So, Neil, there's a good game time.
There you go. We got it all ready for you, Neil.
And the offensive line is good as well.
Oh,
Yeah. It's a big
the offensive line, a bunch of monsters.
Yeah.
They couldn't get in my garage door.
And you got 3 garage doors, so there you go.
There you go.
Coach, we really appreciate your time, taking time out of your day and schedule to well, for us to come over. I usually say to be here, but we're the ones here in your house, and just hearing your stories and just especially us. I mean, we were born in '93. That's why we called that one the magical year, right? You go undefeated and we were born. It was perfect. But just really telling us the story of football and telling us, you know, where you've come from and where you are now, and we really appreciate it. But we want to end on one final question is, when people hear the name Don Nehlen, obviously comes with a lot of great accolades. We, mentioned one to start this show. But what do you want people to think of when they hear the name Don Nehlen?
I'm nobody special. That was my first book.
Yep.
It was.
I'm nobody special. That's what I want them to think. And that's what I am. I'm nobody special.
Thank you so much, Coach. We really appreciate this. This has been fantastic.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you, guys. And my dog came back in the room.
There you go. The fourth.
You know why? He's hungry.
Yeah. I think it's dinner time for all of us.
Yeah, you took his Tygon dinner time, right, Bodie?
We love you all, and go Mountaineers.
Go Mountaineers.
Go Mountaineers, brother.